All right, I think we've got some things up and running. Apologies. I'm a little bit, not kind of ready for the public. I actually just spontaneously fell asleep this morning after a long week of not much sleep. And I woke up about 10 minutes before I was going to do this live. I wanted to stay on schedule. So apologize if I look like I just rolled over out of a cave, but I kind of did. All right, this is very distracting on this page here, so we'll just close that. All right. Yeah, I think I've got everything together. Again, the last few of these have gone really last minute. This time it's because I was asleep. But some of you look like you're popping in. So if you are popping in there, hop in the chat. Let me know you're there. Let's see how everybody's doing. I do have some items to go over today on today's list. Grimy Fishing, good to see you. That can go that way. How you doing, Grimy? Have you been out fishing at all? Lots of crappie lately. I saw a post on social media of you catching crappie. That's right. I did see that. You were catching quite a few. Good for you. I wouldn't mind getting into some crappie right now. Let's just see here. Got to get over onto another page here. Who else is popping in there? Get the community tab going. Man, I'm trying to think. There is a few spots where I would normally, go have a crack at some crappie fishing, or even some like early bluegills right now. And the we've had so much rain, everything is just overflowing, everything's swelling. Team Carp, why aren't you on the bank? I have an explanation for that, and it relates to why March's live stream kind of fell apart and didn't go the way it was supposed to. But I will be on the bank on Monday. Good to see you in the chat there. Actually, some of what's in here does relate to the campaign we're fishing, Team Carp. Grimy, I should spend time when at the big predators are closed to learn how to catch carp, but I already know how to catch panfish, and I'm a fan of instant gratification. There's no arguing with that. There really isn't. I love catching panfish too when you can get on them. Instant gratification when fishing can be very, very powerful to keep you motivated to keep going. Trying to pull away from that to do something new or something that you want to put a little bit more effort into, that can be really hard to do. But the thing about carp fishing is that chances are, and this doesn't go in every case, but in a lot of cases, you have the potential to catch the biggest fish you're ever going to catch, or the biggest fish you're going to catch in years, even if it's just that one bite in the day. We do get into small fish too, but you just never know if that next bite is going to be a fish over 30, 40 pounds. It could be absolutely gigantic. So as much as I completely understand where you're going with that, sometimes it's worth it just to sacrifice a day for that chance at a monster. Looks like we've got some more of you jumping in the chat. Everybody jump in the chat. Let's see how you're all doing. Who's all here? Before I start going down my list of topics for this month. We did attempt a live in March. Things did not go well. Now that I see there's more of you popping in there, I'll get started on at least talking about the March live stream. So my son Zane and I thought, okay, you know what? Let's go out and do our live stream for March. And we went to a local pond, the place where he caught his first fish, place where my wife and I actually got married. It's a very special pond. It's one that my uncle took me to as a kid. And we were going to try and have like a little one-on-one match where Zane was going to fish traditional carp tactics and I was going to fish match style. We were going to see who could get some early season carp in the pond doing that. Unfortunately, when we were doing the live, we tried it, I think 3 different times or 4 different times with the live here on YouTube, and my phone, the audio wasn't coming through and I couldn't figure out why. You guys just couldn't hear me, or you could like just super faintly hear me. So what was weird is that we couldn't get YouTube to work. So we jumped over to Instagram and tried doing a live on Instagram, which we did for the better part of an hour or just over an hour. During that time frame of us fiddling with the phone, trying to get the live stream to work and being live on Instagram, we managed to get, Zane lost 3 fish. He had the most bites. I had 1 carp and I landed a catfish live for the camera on Instagram. Yet somehow, and we haven't been able to figure this out, even though I deleted the messed up ones for YouTube, we tried to save the one from Instagram like I have in the past so that we could keep that on the Instagram page at the very least, because we did catch a fish during it and it didn't save. So there was a live stream on Instagram for March, but I wasn't able to recover it. And so we have no evidence that there was a live in March other than those of you who actually got to see it. So it turns out that the headphone jack and the microphone for my cell phone are so full of steel filings and dust from my work. Because I work with steel, I'm cutting and grinding and torching and all that stuff. There's so much steel debris that has gotten into those ports on the phone that it actually makes the phone think that some of like the headphones and stuff like that are plugged in. And so like even just calling somebody and talking to them on the phone, we both actually get reverb like I'm talking in a hallway and it's echoing back and forth. So for some things, you can't hear me at all. And for others, you almost hear like triple of me. So the reason I'm not on the bank right now for this live is because I need to get a new phone before we can do lives on the bank again. Hopefully May. Hopefully I will try to do a live on the bank for May. Let me see if I can bring up my calendar real quick because I have a lot going on in May. Both work-wise, fishing-wise. Let's see here. Okay, so for May, the live stream would look to be on the 11th, which is not my day to work. So we can certainly shoot to try and have one on the bank for May 11th. If I can get a phone before then. However, that is the weekend before my trip. I do have a trip coming up, and it's an exciting trip. I'm going with everybody's favorite Nathan. Um, we're going to go try and get some really big carp on a very special place that Team Carp is quite familiar with. We're leaving for that on the 16th. We're going to be there for 4 days. So the 11th, if I can pull off a live stream, is going to have to be possibly earlier than normal. But I will see what I can do about getting one on the bank. Yes, Paul, the island. So that trip is something I'm really excited about. I've been gathering up equipment for that trip. Still have to gather some information, from people in the know that I have to talk to about that. But it's one of those weekends that I think Nathan and I both really need to just unplug, get away, and enjoy some time on the bank. We started talking about this at Christmas, and it's happening. So quite excited about it, and really looking forward to getting to go to that. Okay, so now you have an understanding of why the live didn't work and why I'm not on the bank live today, which I really would love to be, because we've had so much rain, and there's actually quite a bit of a break in the rain this morning. Would have been nice to be somewhere trying to get something. Anybody else in there? We had a really high number of viewers for a moment there, and then all of a sudden it dropped off. Do we still have some people hanging out there? I got stuff everywhere on this desk. Okay, so the next topic that I have on my list here, this one's a little bit tougher to get out. I haven't been fishing much. I've had one session since that live stream in March. For those of you who have followed the channel for a long time, there's always been a certain element that comes with these live streams. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. Most of the time you just hear it. My dog Coco, you would always hear her kind of like barking in the background, or quite often what everybody kind of got the best laugh out of is that she would like to curl up at my feet and snore through the live stream. We've had Coco a long time. She's been with us in this house for just over 13 years. And she was actually my uncle's dog. She was, they were breeding hunting dogs with her for a number of years before she came to live with us after she had her last litter of pups. So yeah, she had been here as long as my son has been here. And unfortunately, just over the Easter weekend, age caught up with her, and she passed away. So it's been hard to try and get out with kind of, her long overdue but rapid decline. She slept at my feet every single night that I was in this house. Obviously, if I'm on a trip, it's a little bit different. She went on some with us, but yeah, really tough to kind of let go of her. And because of that, I've not been getting out. I've not been very motivated to get out, and I've been losing a lot of sleep. It's very tough not having her here with me. So for those of you who have lost pets before and are really attached to your dogs, you know what I'm talking about. I was up a good portion of last night as well. And then just like I said at the start of this, I had a cup of coffee, and then I fell asleep and woke up 10 minutes before I was going to do this live. So I haven't kind of adjusted properly to not having the dog around, but that's that's something that I wanted to make sure I mentioned during this live, because there is always somebody who shoots me a message or sometimes in the chat asks why we can't hear the dog, or is that the dog snoring? What is that noise, sort of thing. So unfortunately, the snoring and the barking won't be happening anymore. But we all have to move on. Makes it a little bit tough, a little bit different going forward with sometimes with these things, but it has to happen. So yeah, I just wanted to give an update to that, because some of you have met Coco, some of you have seen her on some of these lives. Most of you have just heard her snore, but unfortunately she's gone. With that out of the way, sorry, just a little trouble with that. I've been trying to distract myself by getting ready for the trip, ready for the spring campaign. And what better way to distract yourself when you can't get out than to buy stuff? So I've been buying stuff and gear, and some things are related to other projects I want to do later this year. Some are related to the trip and the spring campaign. 334 Outdoors, good to see you there. So I got a pile of stuff here. I got 2 boxes. I got some things up on here. And I know for sure there's at least one item still out in the van, I think. So we can jump right into this. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but we all like our carp branded stuff. We all have those brands that we follow, whether it be Corda, ESP, Fox, Nash, all these different brands that we like. But there are some things that you just don't need to get the branded versions of. And I found this out quite a long time ago, when all I could get was that kind of off-brand stuff. Now, obviously, upgraded to branded items does make a difference. As much as people say, avoid the carp tax just by having like a branded name on it. There's certain branded items you just have to go with that make a lot of sense. And so I think I found a good balance in how I purchase my gear. So I want to show you some of the things that I typically get every spring to kind of stock up for the season that are like not branded things. And then we'll get into some of my latest carp kit order, or 2 carp kit orders. And then some of the other cool things that go with some of the other things that I've talked about in previous lives. Grimy, I bought almost $500 worth of stuff at CanCast last weekend, and my wife didn't try to stop me or give me the side eye even once. She's the best. Yeah. Don't ever let go of that one. I thought about going to CanCast last weekend. I actually really wanted to. It's just over a 3-hour drive for me. But I've done that trip before. I went to it when it was in the one high school before it was CanCast, when it was just I think it was just the Peterborough tackle swap back then. But I was going to go. It was in my head to go. But given, obviously, with the dog and kind of how things went there, last weekend, I needed to get outside. I didn't want to be sitting in traffic and just with my brain dwelling on missing the dog. So I went fishing instead. So while you guys were at CanCast, I went fishing and started off my spring campaign. A few weeks late, but I got it started. So now Dave and I have both done our first sessions of this spring campaign. And both of us have blanked like champs, which really sucks because we had fish rising over us on both of our sessions. I think I went on the Sunday I believe Dave went on the Wednesday. Dave came and visited me while I was on my session. Zay and I went and visited him while he was on his. It was a really good recharge session for me. I really needed to be out there. I had amazing bird life around me. I had fish showing over the spots. So there was response to the bait. I did have one take on the middle rod that was gone before I could get to it. Dave did have some liners, so we know the fish were there and active. But I think what was key is that for both of us, given different things we have going on in life, that first session for both of us at that spot was very, very recharging. So as much as I would have loved to go to CanCast and see everybody there and, buy more crap, I needed to get that session in, and it did make a difference. It really did help. But why don't we look at some of this non-branded stuff first? For years, I would go on to wish.com, that cheap site where you can get everything from China. Most of it's crap. Most of it's junk. Alibaba Express or AliExpress, Temu, all these super cheap sites. They're not so cheap anymore. When I started doing this with certain things, you were basically paying like $2 for 10 times the amount of something you would get quantity wise from a branded company. So when we look at anti-tangle sleeves, for example, I only buy my anti-tangle sleeves from these cheapo sites because why not? They're just as good. I can cut these down. I can get longer. I can get shorter. I can get different colors. Here's a package of 50. Normally I buy these in packages of 100. And at one point when I was on one site, I was getting them for like $2 for 100. And you'd pay like another $2 shipping. So for $4, I get 100 instead of 10 for the same amount of money from a branded company. This is an essential piece of kit for my rigs, but it is not one of those things that matters where it comes from. It's just a cheap piece of plastic. So this is kind of the direction I went when refining what I get from these cheap sites and what I get to focus my attention on branded tackle. So yeah, now a lot of these sites, they aren't the same shipping wise. Pretty much that pandemic kind of killed everything with that. So now instead of I could spend $30 and get enough, anti-tangle sleeves to last me 5 years. I could just throw them away in packages to my friends to make sure everybody had what we needed. You can't get as many for the same value anymore, but it still is cheaper to go that route with some of those cheaper sites. Another thing is rubber beads, just little plastic beads that you would use on your hook links, whether you're fishing naked or on leaders, like chod beads and stuff like that. I get all my chod beads from there as well, unless I'm getting the specific ones that are like the safety beads like Corda has, or the ones that they go over a little sleeve like ESP has already on their pre-tied leaders. Those ones sometimes I will get separate, but that depends on where I'm fishing. Generally, if I'm going to be fishing with like naked chods, I'll get these cheap plastic ones because they're dirt cheap and they do the same job. Packbait Ballers of Ontario. Looks like Clint's in the house. Good to see you there. Okay, and I got a bunch of packages here. What do we got here? Okay. So another thing I get from these cheap sites, and this is one of those things that I've never had these fail on me, whether it be from the cheap sites or branded ones for the most part. I have actually had these break from branded companies, never from the cheap ones. And these are just my different swivels. So quick change swivels, you know, that have the little, how well, you can't see that very well. They have the little hook on one end, you know, for putting in the bottom of an inline lead. Quick change ring swivels. These ones here in this package are just normal swivels, but they have a larger eye on one end. When it comes to me getting like any of my like quick change swivels, ring swivels, large eye swivels, hook swivels, you know, if I want to use like my German rig, but get a hair where I'm going to use a larger bait, I'll put a ring swivel, like a micro ring swivel, on the hook itself with, you know, some of the small plastic beads. I get all of my swivels from these cheap sites as well. Speaking of hook beads, right there, you know, you get a pack of 10 or 20 that come on those little stems from a branded company. You're going to pay like $5, and I can get these for like, you dig around on the site a little bit, so it takes up some of your time, but I can get a package of these for $1. The reason I do this is, like I said before, you don't get much difference in quality from non-branded to branded in these particular items. The other key thing is that I'm saving money on this stuff to have money for the branded items. There is logic behind it. I'm not just doing this to avoid brands because I like my branded stuff, but I want to be able to buy my branded stuff. Grimy fishing. Any advice for beginner rigs for carp? I will probably use my 8-foot medium heavy spinning rod and a 3000 size reel. That'll be a perfect setup to start with. Basically, a beginner rig, start with your standard hair rig. Don't get complex with it. There are tons and tons of YouTube videos, websites, all of that stuff that can give you a very simple rundown of tying up the most basic hair rig. Once you get used to that, that's when you can start to refine it, and tie rigs that suit the way you fish. So, you know, for me, logically, what happened was I went from just using a standard hair rig to tying the KD rig, because I found that kicking the hair out made a slight difference in my presentation when I was fishing with pop-ups. Then I started using the tube blowback rig, because that could position the hair so that the hook dropped when I used heavier baits. Gave me better hook holds, and told me if a fish had the rig and, you know, did me in and I didn't catch it. Depending on where you are, Grimy, you can actually get pre-tied rigs. Like if I go to my local tackle shop, Peter's Tackle here in St. Catharines, I can get the ESP pre-tied rigs that are tube blowback rigs. Those I recommend wholeheartedly. They're great. I bought a lot of those when I was just getting started into using hair rigs, and I still buy those today from time to time just to have a couple pre-tied rigs in the bag. A lot of times it's like if my son's with me, I'll put one of those on for him so I can save time setting my gear up, just get him ready and fishing. Other times it's like all the rigs that I was using, I've burned through, didn't stop to take the time to tie anymore. I'll throw on a pre-tied rig to keep me fishing while I take the time to tie more. I don't know what your local shops are, but you can certainly get a lot of that stuff. If you just bear with me for a second, we're going to be talking about carp kit in a few minutes with this stuff anyways. So let me just go over here. If you go on to carpkit.com, obviously he's got everything. Like you can go into the end tackle section. Usually you're going to find all the little bits that you need for tying rigs, but also Simon does have pre-tied rigs on site. There we go. Ready tied rigs is actually one of the items down the left-hand column when you get on the site. There's some pre-tied Ronnies. There's some ESP rigs. There's some Corda pre-tied rigs. Gardner, OMC. Gemini pre-tied rigs. So you have lots of options. There's even a couple of Nash pre-tied slip D rigs. So there's a lot of options for pre-tied rigs. I would certainly recommend trying those. Those will definitely help you see some of the rig mechanics of how things are properly tied. They'll catch you fish, and then you can refine it from there. Perfect. Yeah, if Angling Sports has some, definitely get some from them. And like I said, just looking here at Carp Kit, you definitely got options there. So yeah, between the anti-tangle sleeves, my swivels, the hook beads, and my the bait screws. I've got two different sizes here. My standard size is usually quite small because I'm just using one hook bait, be it a pop-up or a boilie or a piece of plastic corn. So these are pretty much the standard size that I get. You get a package of 20 or 30 for like $2 or $3. And then something new I got, these ones are like 1.5 inches long. These are really long bait screws. Hopefully I can do some snowman rigs on my German setup with those. So, a little bit of metal wear, a little bit of plastic wear, saving money buying that stuff from the cheapo sites. You might wait 2-3 weeks for it to arrive in the mail, but you've saved money there to be able to put more of it onto the branded items that are more important that you get branded items. I've used hooks from these cheap sites. A lot of them break. Some of them are really good, but out of a pack of, say, 10 hooks from the cheap branded site or the cheap non-branded sites, it was almost, because I did quite a bit of this last year and the year before, where I was buying a different style hook pattern that I've never tried before. And I found that for every package of 10, I was breaking at least 3. Those are lost fish. And in one case it broke when I was tying it, because I tied a tube blowback rig on it and I tightened it up like this and it snapped. Grimy, what line and type test do you use? Okay, so line is very simple. Whether you're a mono guy or a braid guy, it really doesn't matter at this point. I typically use mono through kind of the winter and early spring, and I switch over to braid for late spring and the rest of the season. It all depends on where you're fishing. If you're using mono, I tend to stay between 15 and 18 pound test. However, you will find a difference, like when it comes to the brands of line. Everybody's got their favorite brand of line. When I'm fishing bass, pike, trout, stuff like that, I like P-line. I used to use Andy over the years. That was one of my favorites for the longest time. Andy line was great. Some of my rods have Trilene on them from Berkeley, but there is a huge difference when I look at an 18-pound test spool from P-line that is on all my bait casters, and an 18-pound test spool of carp fishing line. The strength, the abrasion resistance, and the diameter of the line are massively different. Massively different. If you're going to get line to fish for carp, you can certainly start with Berkeley XT, the blue one. That is a good line to get you started with, go with 12 or 15 pound test. If you're going to be in an area where there's a lot more rock, or there's definitely bigger fish, maybe up it to 18, but 12 to 15 will definitely get you going with Berkley XT. However, if you're going to get some stuff from Carp Kit and you're going to have maybe that reel that you mentioned, that 3000 series reel, if that's going to be specifically used for carp and not necessarily other things, you could get a carp line. And for my carp lines, when I'm buying mono, I use Gardner GTHD in either 15 or 18 pound. That is a phenomenal line. And I don't know anybody who has a problem with it. It's a really good monofilament line, but the diameter is so much smaller than the same in Berkley Trilene, even XT. So whichever is going to kind of suit what your tackle is going to be set up for. Another thing about the Berkley line, Berkley XT will do the job. Okay. Berkley Big Game. There are carpers in Europe that use Berkley Big Game. That is another good line that you can just go to Canadian Tire or your local tackle shop and get. But if you buy the big boxes of like 330 yards of Berkley Big Game line, you will pay more for that 330 yard spool than you will for the bulk spool that holds like 800 to 1,000 yards that is usually down on the bottom. So like if you're in a Canadian Tire, the box is up on the wall on the pegboard. Down on the floor, there's those trays, and you'll see those upright spools of Berkley Big Game. Those spools are like $11 for like between 800 and 1,100 yards, something like that. The box up on the wall on the pegboard will be like $6 or $8 for 330 yards. You get a better deal getting the bulk spool. So just keep that in mind, Grimy. Pack bait ballers got to get out together soon. Well, yeah, but I have to get out more. I've been out once in the past month. Okay, so now moving over to some of the branded stuff I have. This is going to get into my latest Carp Kit order. These right here are a prime example of why I save my money on the cheap sites to get these branded items, because I've tried, and the non-branded items in these particular categories just don't cut it. One of those things is PVA. Okay. I use a ton of PVA. And funny enough, my PVA preferences fall between two companies. When it comes to PVA mesh, so your funnel web system, EVA, ESP, hands down, my favorite. The feel is better. It melts better. It's strong. It holds everything. I find it responds less to my bait sprays and liquids and stuff like that than others. If you try to get your PVA mesh from those cheap sites, it'll work, but it's shit. There's no other way to put that. It'll work. If you're on a budget or you're new, you can get your PVA mesh from those same cheap sites as those other products I mentioned, but it's not great. The ESP mesh, in my opinion, out of all the mesh I've used, is the best. The only one that I've used that came even close to this in feel and use and melting was PVA Hydrospall. One that I avoided for the longest time just because of certain people that I knew that used it. Stupid reason to not use a product, but I avoided it for that reason. Then out of necessity, picked some up because I was getting some bulk spools of it, and holy crap, it was good stuff. Very close to this. Not this, but very close to it. So if I had to break down my two preferred PVA mesh, it would be the ESP or the PVA Hydrospall. So I no longer skimp on that. I used to try and buy that cheap mesh because I buy so much of it throughout the year because I use it. I pretty much use mesh on 98% of my casts. So that's like such a key part of my kit. I learned very early on not to skimp with that. I bought this. Didn't realize that I have a brand new one in one of my tackle bags. So this one will go in one bag. The other will go in the bag that it's in. This is just a low bore tube threader for threading rig tubing. I couldn't find it, needed it. Got another one because it's affordable. It's from Gardner. I used another one of these from some other company before, and it came apart in the tubing and went out the sides. So I stopped using it for a while, and I haven't used tubing for quite a while. But I like using tubing, especially when I use mono. But when I'm using braid, I don't always want to be using the big lead core leaders, and I've got some tubing, so I got these to thread them through. So I picked that up from my last carp kit order. ONT Carpin, good to see you there. Doug the Carp Smasher has showed up. You know what? We're only 41 minutes in. That time flew by. But finally, Doug is here, so we can all take a break. I'm just kidding. I'm going to keep talking about my gear here. So another thing that I don't skimp on, and I didn't really touch on this so much. I think I mentioned it. Your hook link material. Don't get it from those cheap sites where I'm getting all this stuff. Okay. Buy the cheap stuff so you can save your money for hook link material because it's expensive from just about every company you're going to get it from. You know, they're not all terrible price wise, but I go through a lot. And so I need to buy more. And for those of you who followed for quite a while, you'll know by now that my preferred hook link material is the Corda N-Trap Soft in 20 pound. I do sometimes get it slightly lighter. I do sometimes get it slightly heavier, depending on where I'm going to be fishing. But this, after years of trying them all, this is my favorite. This is my number one. I will use this on every rig that I can, hook link material. And, you know, when you're looking at like between $18 and $22 for a spool like this, that is, I think they're typically 20 meters. Saving money on these rig bits makes sure I can get that. You know, man, I've used the Nash hook link materials, which I did like. I used the hook link from ESP, like the two-tone and some of the others. They were good, but I found them to not be quite as strong as the N-Trap Soft. When Ridge Monkey came out with all of those hook link materials, the Rock Bottom I liked. I did like that one. I found the other ones to be crap. I didn't really like the other ones very much. They just didn't hold up to the environments I'm fishing in. I know other people that have used those ones, really liked them. They didn't cut it where I fish. The Niagara River eats tackle. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you need to be prepared, and you need to have that right balance. You can't just have abrasion resistance. You have to have abrasion resistance. You have to have overall strength. There has to be a certain level of stretch and give. And the N-Trap Soft is what's doing it for me in pretty much every single scenario that I fish in. ONT Carpin, want to try some Steam Link. That is the... Why am I drawing a blank on the brand? What's the brand for that one, for Steam Link? Galen, what is that one? That one I don't remember the brand. Palatrax. Okay, so Palatrax, I have not tried any Palatrax products. The only one that has really had my attention that I definitely wanted to try was the Grips hooks. I will try the Steam Link. Sure. I'm going to see you in a few weeks, so hook a brother up. I'll drop off some of my rigs tied with this, as we discussed. I think I'm going to give you five rigs to relate with my plan, and we'll make a trade. Rigs for rigs, yeah. Well, you guys need to keep an eye on the ONT Carping YouTube channel and social media. Galen does all that amazing underwater stuff that is, and I've said this before, it's on par or better than what we're seeing coming out of Europe. So keep watching ONT Carpin's channel. He put a question out not long ago about, other people's rigs in front of his camera. So I'm going to send him my rigs, because there's been a lot of people that really like the way I use my German rig, the way I tie it, the way I use it for hook baits that typically wouldn't be used for that particular rig. I use every hook bait on that rig. So we're going to put them in front of Galen's cameras and see what happens. How often do those rigs get spit out? How often do they hook up? How does it behave? How does it lay out away from the lead? Does it curl up on itself? That's all the stuff we want to know that Galen will be able to figure out. So you guys keep an eye on his channel. If you're not actually subscribed to him yet, smack yourself across the face, go over, subscribe to his channel, and start following. I've already seen a lot of really cool stuff from his underwater footage that has made me think about my presentation in some of my spots. All right. So definitely, this is not me plugging Galen just because he's a friend. This is me plugging him because you guys are going to learn stuff about carp behavior here in Canada on his channel. Plain and simple. That's just how it is. If you guys are also Canadian Carp Society members, he's done some underwater stuff for our CCS TV episodes, where it goes a little bit more in depth with description of what was happening related to certain catches and how things went underwater. So there's lots of great stuff coming from Galen that you guys really want to see. Right here is probably the number one thing branded tackle wise that you don't want to skimp on. Like I said, I've tried hooks from those cheaper sites. Not worth it. If there's a certain hook pattern you want to try, but you don't want to invest, the larger price of a branded one, which is what I did, you can get those hook patterns from those same sites, those off-branded sites, because a lot of the same factories that produce the branded stuff produces their own version for a cheaper price. So, the ones that I've got here, those cheaper sites will do one with like a lower quality metal, or a thinner wire, or it's just, the barb is slightly further back, or the bend isn't quite exactly the same. They're very similar. So you can try a lot of those patterns from those cheaper sites, find the pattern you like, and then go to the brand that makes it, because these ones have to follow a lot more quality control than the other ones do. You've all seen me using the Cortichlor hooks for the last number of years. So I got a package of size 6 and two packages of size 4, just because I go through a lot of these. The only downside to picking your branded hooks is that a lot of the hooks out of England and Europe have these long, fine points, even the beaked ones. So you knock over a lot of tips on your hooks. The only ones that I've really found that are robust enough to not have to be filing your hook constantly are the Monster Carp tackle hooks, the Universal Perfection ones, and they're always in my kit. Every single tackle bag I have has Monster Carp tackle hooks in it. So if I'm in a spot where I'm fishing and I'm using my standard German rig with my chlor hooks, if the tip is getting dinged over and over and over again where I'm going through these a lot, I'll put on a Monster Carp hook, change the rig slightly, usually to a tube blowback rig, and the tip issue will stop happening. I might not get the same number of hookups because I have to use a slightly different rig than my confidence rig, but I can stop worrying about the hook putting the other one out there. So just because you guys don't see me use the Monster Carp tackle hooks very often anymore doesn't mean I don't use them. I cannot go carp fishing without them close by, because if I have a problem with any other hook, I can always count on that one. The reason I use other hooks is for the specifics of the pattern. If Monster Carp Tackle made a chlor hook, I would use it because I know that thing is going to be the strongest hook on the market. So don't skimp on your hooks. Buy good branded hooks that you're comfortable with. And again, it took a long time for me to get used to buying the branded hooks. And I used them from every company. I used them from Nash, ESP. Some of the ESP hooks I still use, certainly in my match fishing. Fox, I've used some of the Fox hooks. I used Ridge Monkey hooks. I will never buy Ridge Monkey hooks again. The tips are so fine on those. If you're casting out into, light sand and mud where the tip is never going to touch a rock or anything rigid whatsoever, and you're comfortable getting one fish per hook, then maybe those hooks would be great, because if you can get a bite with them, they're going to go into everything, but that hook will be destroyed. The long fine points just fold over even when you get a bite. I did not like the Ridge Monkey hooks at all. They do not suit Canadian fishing whatsoever. Corda Chlor hooks, however, they've got that slightly beaked point, and these work here. The other Corda hook I found really well is the Wide Gape. I've even used the Wide Gape X, and I think I used the Wide Gape Double X. I think I have. They're like really heavy wire. They really do. Those are tough hooks, really, really tough hooks, but probably overkill even for my fishing. I didn't realize they were quite that heavy duty until I got them. They definitely got me some fish in some really tough rocky areas, but I think those were a little bit overkill. Okay, I got more to show you here. Oh yeah, I got my little Canadian Carp Society pen I'm going through my list with. Okay, so I'll show you these cool things in a minute. I think I got one of these boxes open and one of them's not. Yeah, that one I haven't even opened yet. That one arrived a couple days ago. If you ever want to order from somewhere where it's going to take you longer to open the box than to see what's in it, order from Carp Kit. I've never, ever, ever had to worry about shipping and packaging coming from Simon. Okay. All right. So, yes. Okay. So this order here, was the Corda items, the ESP mesh, and some bait. This order here is just bait. Now these relate to two particular scenarios. All right. As I've mentioned, Dave and I and Paul from Team Carp we kind of have this plan of a spring campaign. And while we did get a late start, Dave and I have done our first sessions, and I'm going back on Monday. So we've been keeping a spot baited. You know, obviously we're going to invest the money into good bait to make sure that the fish we're targeting show up. So in this box, this relates to not only my spring campaign with Paul and Dave, but I'm also stocking up for my trip in a few weeks with Nathan to the island. So what I've got in this box, if you go on the Carp Kit site, and obviously I'm using DT baits, you can get these 3 kilo bags in a variety of different flavors. So I wanted to change things up this year. You know, every year I always get pineapple, I get banana, pineapple, banana. For the last, 2 or 3 years that I've been using DT baits, my massive go-to has been superfruit. Man, I love fishing with superfruit. It's such a good boilie, such a good flavor. And I can fish any hook bait with superfruit and it fits, right? But, you know, I can fish pineapple, I can fish end blend, I can fish any hook bait, the strawberry, the banana, the what's that other one I like? The cold water green beast. I can fish any of those over superfruit boilies, superfruit liquid, superfruit pellets. I can fish any of the other hook baits over superfruit, and they work. And I found that you get a slightly different response over some of the other flavored boilies. So when I put a lot of pineapple boilies out, pineapple and banana hook baits will crush it. But some of the other hook baits, if they're right in amongst the bait, don't get the same response. You have to fish them kind of off the bait to get more of a response out of them. It's weird. It definitely is weird, but that's just been my observation. Now, because I'm going to be fishing one spot that I've been growing with familiarity lately, the last few years, fishing with Dave, and a spot that I'm going to go on this trip that I've never fished before, I wanted to take a gamble and try some different flavors this year. So to start things off, I got 2 3 kilo bags of the DT Baits Tutti Frutti Shelf Life Boilies. I'll tell you right now, I can smell these through the bag. They smell wonderful. I really like this. So these are going to be going into my mixes. So this 1 3 kilo bag will probably be a big part of my mix over the next 4 weeks while I'm trying to get and fish with this spring campaign. The other one will be saved specifically for my trip. I know Nathan has a lot of the DT boilies. I'm pretty sure he's got a lot of end blend. So we're going to be kind of like mixing a fruity mix and a nutty mix together out there for our spring bites on the island. So yeah, 1 for the campaign, 1 for the trip. So there's 6 kilos right there. And obviously, I need to make sure that I do have a little bit of the Old Faithful. Oh, there's a sticker in there. Catch and release. Oh, from Catran. They make the lines. That's a cool sticker. Thanks, Simon. I did get a couple 3 kilo bags of the DT pineapple shelf life boilies. So I got 6 kilos of that. The pineapple, some of it's going to go on the trip. But I'm going to be getting another probably 2 bait orders in before my trip that are going to be more about the Tutti Frutti. The pineapple is a little bit for here, a little bit for the trip, like as far as the spring campaign and the trip goes. But pineapple is pretty much Niagara River. I'm trying to just set up my shelves and make sure I have all the bait that I need kind of to cover me for the first half of the season. If I'm going to fish pineapple, I got to have it on the river. The carp on the river absolutely love pineapple. So some of it will go to the island. Some of it will be on the spring session, but most of it is going to be for the river. Something neat that I saw on the site, I have been using the DT pellets a lot, pretty much the superfruit pellets almost exclusively, but I get the 3 and the 7 mil, right? So I'll have multiple packages of them, and I like to use them in my PVA. I like to use them in my spod mixes. The downside to what I have in my hand is that it only came in the one flavor, but I don't have any issues with the flavor. I did catch on this last year. I used a lot of the tiger nut and corn boilies kind of mixed in through the later part of the season, and the tiger nut and corn hook baits and stuff, and they worked. I think the first fish I had on a tiger nut and corn hook bait was a 31 pounder. So this, it's a 1 kilo bag. You can get this on Carp Kit. It's tiger nut and corn, 3 and 7 mil pellets. Let's put this in a little bit of PVA mesh, and this is perfect. So while I would have preferred a different flavor, I would have liked to get this in superfruit or this in maybe N blend as well. I'm not complaining about it being tiger nut and corn. It's just that the tiger nut and corn, I don't find blends the same with the fruity baits as it will with, say, the nutty ones. And I don't tend to fish much in the way of nutty baits here anymore. The fruity baits seem to really do the job. But had to get having the two mixed in the bag, had to get that. Going to give you different breakdown times around your hook bait. It's important. Okay, what else we got in here? Garbage bag. Very important for leave no trace. Very, very important. Speaking of, zero garbage, leave no trace. Okay. Now I've got some pots of hook baits here. You see 2 in this hand, but poof, all of a sudden there's a third. Where'd that come from? That's the extent of my magic ability. Banana and pineapple chunks. My session last weekend, as great as it was to get out and as much as that did recharge my batteries and help me get the campaign started, I traveled light and I only had 4 pots of hook baits. I had cold water green beast in pink. I had the mixed color superfruit pop-ups. And then I had the one pot that was both of these because I only had like 5 pop-ups in each jar. So I just threw them together in another jar. And I had one other pot that was just another miscellaneous mixed pop-ups just kind of thrown in together because I don't want to be carrying a whole pot like this with just 4 or 5 in it. I find an empty pot, I mix them all together. Sometimes the flavors bleed a little bit. For the most part, they don't. And then I can minimize how many of these I'm carrying and still get enough variation in my hook baits. But you cannot fish in Canada without pineapple and banana. These are essential. Super important. Super important for fishing for carp in Canada that you have these 2 flavors. And I was almost out. Now this one's a new one. And this goes with kind of the new line of DT baits that we can get here. Let me just pop onto Carp Kit. I'll pop into the DT baits section. So this new line of critically balanced baits from DT came out on Carp Kit earlier this year or the end of last year. And it's got a couple of different hook bait options, and it's got some shelf life pastes. I haven't tried the pastes yet, and I haven't actually bought any of the critically balanced hook baits. This one was actually sent to me because this is one of the ones that typically we wouldn't use here because you wouldn't be able to use 3 rods with this. This is the oily chicken hook bait. Okay, they have an oily chicken one that is very, very popular in Europe. But obviously I would have to use 1 rod if I'm using these because it's not plant-based. It's got animal product in it. However, these interesting ones that they've got, there's 4 of them, I think, but 3 of them you can get on the DT site right now. There's the Green Beast and Plum. There is Crustasia and Spice. So that's another one. You can't use multiple rods for that because it's got the crustacean meal in it. But then there's also an N blend and chocolate. I love me a chocolate covered peanut. So I can understand why a fish would. That N blend is like a tiger nut blend, like tiger nut meal. So N blend and chocolate is going to have a very interesting flavor. N blend has got that sharp flavor for being a nutty hook bait, and mixing that with chocolate, that might soften that out a bit. So that'll be really interesting. But these are critically balanced, and this is the oily chicken and coconut. And I really, really wanted a coconut bait from DT because coconut does very, very well here, especially when it's cold. Comes with a little booster spray bottle in it. It's a very, very different aroma. Oh, I dropped one. It's very savory. It smells very interesting. And I would imagine in the water, this is gonna definitely get a unique response from the fish. I'm gonna have to take some out just to get the booster in it. This is one that I'm gonna try. I don't typically buy any baits that I can't use with 3 rods. I did buy Crustasia. I haven't used it yet. But my brain, because I don't want to stop using 3 rods, my brain keeps telling me, don't take it out, don't take it out. Every time I go and fish a match, when I was fishing with the Match Club last year, and I did that session with Zane in March, I only use 1 rod when I'm doing that. There's no reason why I can't use the Crustasia or the oily chicken and coconut fishing in those scenarios. I'm still fishing carp, but also catfish. These would be killer baits for carp and catfish. And I can use it with 1 rod without interfering with the way I normally fish my typical carp sessions. So that oily chicken and coconut is actually going to go in my match fishing bag. However, I have a spot that I want to go to this year where there's only room to use 1 rod, where I can try that for some bigger fish. I want to see what the response from big fish is on that. Because so far, if you go on the DT website and you look at some of the catch reports, you'll see that these flavors like the oily chicken, the Crustasia, the catch reports page has some pretty impressive catches from all across Europe and the UK. So that one I'm interested in trying. And, I'm on the fence about the pastes. I'm not one that uses pastes typically. However, I do fish spots with a lot of current where a paste breaking down and just kind of leaving that trail could be very, very useful. Right now on the Carp Kit site, there is a super fruit paste, a peach and sour cream, which is another really good flavor. And it's a dark hook bait. If you get the peach and sour cream pop-ups, it's a very dark hook bait. Very first DT baits fish I captured was on a peach and sour cream. N blend and Crustasia pastes as well. So my next order where I'm going to get some more Tutti Frutti boilies. I might get the superfruit paste. I might try that out. While I'm on the site and we're looking at DT products right now, I'm going to mention this real quick. I haven't gotten any of these yet, but I'm on the fence with a couple of them because I want to make a couple of hook baits myself for this year, because I want to incorporate coconut a little bit more in with my DT fishing. And you can actually get some bait making concentrated taste track liquids from DT on the Carp Kit site now. 4, 8, 12. There's 13 different ones on here. So if you're somebody that likes to make your own baits, you can get some of the traditional DT flavors, or you can mix and match and make some of your own. So Tutti Frutti, toasted nut, sweet damson, black crab. So if you're fishing a spot where the like let's say you're in the prairies where you can only use one rod, or you're in Quebec where you can only use one rod, you can use any of these. With us, where we can use 3, we have to be very specific about our baits. But I would love to try the black crab one. There is a squid and octopus. I have caught so many fish on squid and octopus flavored baits over the years. And I haven't used squid and octopus since we went to the multi-rod rule. You can get strawberry, sour cream, Scopex. There's banana, there's pineapple, there's peach, cold water green beast, and fresh orange. So you've got a lot of options where you can mix and match some of those flavors. I have coconut in a different company, but I want to mix it with one that's on here. So might be able to make something really cool out of it. I have to do a test first. And if my test works, I'll be grabbing one of these taste track concentrates to try it out. So yeah, that kind of goes through my cheap gear purchase, my branded gear purchase, and my current up-to-date bait purchase for this season. But more to come on that. Probably another 2 orders between now and my trip. I don't know how you choose what bait to use with all those options. Well, Galen, like I said, that kind of relates to where I'm fishing, right? I know it's different for some of you guys out there where you kind of have 1 or 2 spots, or maybe you've got like 5 spots, but they're all part of the same river system, let's say. I have over 100 spots, probably within 15 minutes of me. And I would say they kind of cover 20 different water bodies. And I'm talking like, I have creeks, I have rivers, I have ponds, I have 2 of the Great Lakes. We got the big river. We've got canals. So like, I can go to a lot of different places, and the fish behave differently in each of those places. So like, I don't just sit on the Niagara River all year. Pretty much from about, the next couple of weeks, you're going to see the winter bite really taper off from the spots on the river. The spring bite will start to kick up in a couple of spots, and then it's going to go kind of dead until about the end of June. So pretty much for May and June, the Niagara River just isn't going to kick out fish the same way that it did in the winter, or the way it will in the summer. That just kind of leads up to the spawn. Now, last year, I did my spring campaign on the Niagara River. So I did my winter campaign, finished it in March, immediately went over to my spring campaign and did April and May in a spot. And then June, I couldn't get a bite on the river until almost the end of June. It was the very end of June. I had to go other places. So typically I move around to all these different places based on where these fish are active. And I typically fish those spots until I get the biggest fish I can out of that spot. And then I move. I don't stay and keep trying to catch big fish in that spot because I don't want to wear it out. So I'll get like a 30-pounder on like the second session in a spot. Okay, time to pack up. I'll go to a different spot, different location, different type of water and fish it. So if I want to catch big fish, I go specifically where I'm going to be targeting big fish, and I fish my superfruit baits, lots of liquids, lots of attractors. But if I want to just go get a lot of runs, and I'm not worried about the fish being big, I'll load up a bucket of maize with a few chopped boilies and some ground bait in it. And I don't have to use as much bait, fish some smaller hook baits, and I'll catch, 8 and 10 pounders all day long. So I can kind of vary what bait I'm going to use based on what fish I'm going for, what size I'm going for, what type of water I'm going for. That's the rabbit hole you get into fishing carp, specifically in the Niagara region. We have so much water and so many options, it's almost offensive. Really. It's hard to choose sometimes. It's so difficult to wake up in the morning and be like, all right, I want to fish carp today. Do I want to catch big carp? Do I want to catch small carp? Do I want to fish with this bait? Do I want to fish with this bait? Do I want to use these rods? Do I want to use these rods? If I'm lazy and don't want to do any casting and I want to just kind of have a bunch of bites, I'll get the little 9-foot light action rods. I'll grab some 12 mil pop-ups, a little bucket of corn, and I'll go down to a creek and I'll catch 5 fish in an hour and then go home. Got my fix. So you get to know how to choose your options based on what you have available to you. So if you got like one river system and you're fishing maybe 3 different swims over 10 kilometers on this river system, you're going to find that those fish respond very specifically to certain baits in those swims. And then you'll find that you only use those bait options in those swims. So it just comes from hitting a lot of water, really. Yeah, exactly. Time on the water, having all those options, and actually taking the time to fish those options and try them out. I recently wrote an article that's not yet up on the Canadian Carp Society site, but I did write an article kind of relating to that, about how I approach spots and kind of get over the whole idea of just sticking with one bait and how I try other baits. It's kind of what I call my experimentation game. If I've had a lot of fish, a couple fish to save a blank, there's no reason just to keep on the same bait and keep smashing them on one bait. You already know that bait works. Now's your perfect opportunity to try something else that you wouldn't normally use there. Test the response. Could be better, could be worse. But you're never going to know if you just stick with what they keep biting. So if you're a member of the site, the Canadian Carp Society, and you go on the site sometime soon, I hope. I'm not quite sure when, but I did write a new article relating to that particular scenario that will be going up at some point. Okay, now I do have a couple more things to show you. We've gone just over an hour. I do have, it's not a scheduled appointment, but it is an appointment that I have to do within a certain time frame. So I do have to jet out soon, but we're going to go over a couple of these other things I picked up first. Off topic, but any idea how you are going to combat the zebra mussels covered structure and weeds around the island? Yes. A large portion of my fishing already deals with that in the Niagara River and the Welland River. So I do have a plan. I don't know if I'm ready to tell you yet. I'm kidding. I do use Corda's Armacord braided leader or a braided, it's like a shock leader, snag leader. I do use that. I'm going to up that to 50 pound for this trip. That will be on hand, but I'm also going to get some heavy duty mono snag leader. So probably, a 20-meter stretch to kind of cover that. You weren't at, damn, Galen, sorry. You weren't at the one social when we went up to the St. Lawrence with the CCS. I pretty much now, whenever I go to the St. Lawrence, I pretty much just fish chod rigs. And one of the things that I started doing up there to combat the zebra mussels and all the sharp rocks and stuff like that we had been fishing in was I bought the spool of Signet heavy fluorocarbon, and I was putting like 15-meter stretches on and then fishing naked chods right off of the heavy fluorocarbon. Perfect for abrasion resistance. Couldn't come out with the word abrasion for some reason. So I'm going to have some of that on hand. I'm going to have the heavy Armacord on hand. I have some, I think, 30-pound Armacord here already. I'm going to buy some 50. And the other part to that could be potentially, instead of trying to fight the fish back from the bank, get my ass in a boat and go out to them, get on top of them so that I don't have time for it to fight on that. So yeah, look into obviously Signet doesn't exist anymore. Kind of, what was it? Cypher that owns Tracker. They own Signet and Aqua. They did away with Signet, so all that tackle is going to be rebranded under Tracker. But if you go to Simon's site on Carp Kit, he still has all that Signet terminal tackle that they had there available, and he might have that shock leader. I'm just taking a quick look, Galen, because I still have the site up. There's like 4 pages of the Signet terminal tackle still on the site. Still got tons of leads. Those are great leads, by the way. Yeah, there you go. Signet Fluorolink, 20-meter spools, $13.88 a spool, and the 30-pound is only 0.5 millimeter in diameter. So you can see, even for a heavy line, the diameter is not that bad. Right? This is where I was mentioning earlier between like our traditional monofilaments and carp lines. The diameter is really, really much better in the carp lines. So yeah, Signet Fluorolink in 20-meter spools. I know that'll probably help you in your spots as well. Okay, so moving on. Have I skipped anybody's questions? I don't think so. I think, anybody have any other questions before I jump on to the last few things I have to go over? Hopefully I'm answering everything as I can. Okay, we'll wait and see if any of those pop up. Like I said, I do have somewhere I have to be soon, so I can't stick around too long. But in the previous live streams, you guys have heard me talk about how I've been getting new gear that's very compact, very small. So I've been watching a lot of like bushcraft videos and camping videos, and I want to get back to doing some of that at some point soon. You saw that I got that really small sleeping bag that packs up like really tiny, and there was a few other things over there. I've recently gotten 2 chairs and a table as well, and they pack up so small. I used one of the chairs for the first time last weekend, and there's definitely some pros to it. There's a couple of cons to it, but they're not the worst in the world for cons. So we'll start off with some of these things here. We'll just look into them real quick. I'm not going to take them out and I'm not going to set them up because I am going to do a separate video where I actually use these with kind of like a review that I'm probably going to film while I'm out filming on Monday. So one of the things that I definitely need, we all need, if you're like me and you go out in any kind of weather conditions, is rain gear. It's really hard to find rain suits that are durable enough for me because I move a lot. I go through a lot of rough terrain. I go through a lot of trees. I'm not careful. So whenever I get a nice raincoat, I tend to rip it apart. I did get a nice little raincoat, like a spring raincoat, summer raincoat, a couple of years ago that I've been using that does really well, but it doesn't cover the bottom half. And the rain pants that I could get to go with it, for some reason, are pricier than the jacket itself. And I'm afraid that I'm afraid the ass is going to split open as soon as I put them on. One, I'm a big guy, and two, I'm always moving around, and that kind of material doesn't tend to last for me. So one of the things I picked up was a rain poncho, something that's going to go over me and kind of cover me with a little bit more completion, let's say, so I don't have to worry about, my upper half being fine and then my pants being soaked. So I got a rain poncho, but I got one that packs up really small, and it's camo, and it's kind of a heavier material. So the rain poncho itself is made of the same material that the bag is. What's interesting is that it's very similar to the ATV cover, rain cover that I have that I put over my barrel. It's quite heavy duty, and it works. I think I got this on Amazon. Most of the stuff I've been getting on Amazon rather than direct from the company's websites, because it's been able to save me a lot of money on shipping and import fees. So when you're looking for this stuff, find it on certain websites. This one, I don't think had a specific brand to it. I think this is one that I just kind of stumbled across. I was looking at rain ponchos, kind of gave up on them because I wasn't happy with what I was seeing. And then I was looking at some of these other items, and this came up in my feed, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's different. And it's a very different price than the rest of them. And it packs up smaller, but it's got the heavier material. So I grabbed it without much other thought than that. So needed a rain poncho, got one. This will definitely help on the island if it rains, but on the river, pretty much everywhere else I go, I wanted one of those. Okay, this one is from a company called Nice Sea. They're out of California, and they make some of this kind of decent budget camping gear. This is an aluminum top folding table. This is the whole thing in the bag. You know how small this is. So when I compare this to my bivy table, my nice little aluminum tray table that's only about this big and stands about this high, this is twice the size when it's actually a little bit more than twice the size when it's set up. It's a little bit higher, not much higher, but it is aluminum, so I can do my cooking on it. I can boil my kettle on it without any concerns. But it folds up this small. The other ones, they fold up flat, but they're still pretty big. There's other versions of this that are taller and bigger, and a lot of them are made by different companies. Let's see if you can see that. That's the way it sets up. Just some fine legs underneath, nice aluminum top. I set this up in here when I got it, and I was actually quite impressed with how rigid it was. And I piled a bunch of gear on it and books and stuff like that, and it held the weight just fine. Just dropped this straight down into a rucksack with my sleeping bag and a few other things, and it's going to save a lot of space. And it weighs I don't think it weighs 2 pounds, maybe pound and a half. It doesn't weigh anything, and it's small. So this is one of those things where, I'm looking at all this more compact gear so that I can not, load up my barrow to be like overflowing, but also to reduce the weight so it's not as hard on my back. And I'm finding all this stuff in these other areas of outdoors activities that I think will really fit well in our carp fishing. It's not always going to be carpy green. And in some cases, I'm not paying the carp tax by having a branded name on it. In some cases, I am. It's just not a carp brand. It's a camping brand, let's say. And I'm really, really impressed with this stuff so far. Now, I have one of the chairs with me. The other chair is in the car because I used it last weekend. This is the larger of the two. So one is just a standard camping chair, or their standard camping chair for this company. And this is the high back version. I wanted to get one that has a little bit more support to my shoulders. I have two of them. So I set the smaller one up right here the one day when I got it. I think I was home. I was actually homesick one day when it arrived, and I was at my desk watching a movie. I can't even explain why I was doing that, because I have a 60-inch TV over there and a nice big couch and a blanket, and I wasn't over there. I was here for some reason. But I set up the chair anyway, and I thought, okay, this looks way too flimsy for somebody my size. These chairs say on the website and on Amazon, where I did get them from, that they're rated to hold somebody up to 330 pounds. I don't know if I agree with that. I am just over 260 pounds, and I'll admit, sitting in the small one, I think I'm kind of maxing out its ability to hold that weight. So it may hold somebody a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, but it certainly won't be comfortable. For me, that small one is like as small as it can be for me to fit and be still comfortable. And about 5 minutes after sitting in it right here, I fell asleep in it. It doesn't go all the way up my back, so it doesn't support my shoulders and my neck. I can't lean back in it. But it turns out that it's an incredibly comfortable chair. So I took it fishing with me because I was going to be fishing on rock, and I could have a nice strong structure for it to sit on. They only have fine point feet, so you don't want to use them on muddy areas. It's going to sink right in. But I was surprised at not only how light it was. It wasn't a pain in the ass to carry out to where I was fishing like my other chairs are. It had a much smaller footprint where it sat on the ground. It held my weight. It was as comfortable, if not more comfortable, than some of my carp chairs, and I have a couple of those. And it was like a fraction of the price. I think I paid like $45 for the small version. I did pay a little bit more for the high back version, which I have sat in, and it is more comfortable. This one does feel like it's a little bit more suited for somebody my size. And here's where it gets really interesting. I'm going to hold this up. This is the big one. Okay. Look at how small that folds up. This is the big chair. The small one is only about that long. And this weighs 2.5 pounds. The small one, about 2 pounds. I just clipped it onto the back of my rucksack when I hiked into the spot. Barely noticed it was there. Monster carp tackle, baiting on my way to work. Awesome. Thank you. So yeah, this company, One Tigris, they make camping gear. And a lot of the bushcraft people, a lot of the camping videos that I watch, they all have something from this company. They make a lot of really interesting tents. They make these chairs. They make some other products. So I've been looking at their equipment quite a bit. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to try the chairs because I want some really small fold-up chairs that are going to hold my weight and still be comfortable. And so far, I'm really impressed. I will say this, though. If you're my weight or heavier, these are probably not the chairs for you. Again, they say they'll hold 330 pounds. I don't know. I think that's really pushing it. I think I'm pushing it. Now, build-wise, I'm pretty stocky. I'm pretty wide, but I'm not like massive. If you're a wider person, maybe not the chair for you. So even if you're a little bit, my weight or lighter, but wider in build, these might not be as comfortable. Like I said, I'm going to go into more detail and do a review because I'm going to set them both up together. So I've kind of touched on it here, but a lot of people that watch the regular videos don't always watch the lives. So for you guys, since I can, kind of talk to you while I have them in my hand, I'm kind of giving you some of these details now, but I'm going to try and go more in depth with with a different video. This one does sit a little bit higher off the ground, not much, a couple inches, I think. But yeah, look at this. Look at how small this is. And this is the big chair. How crazy is that? So yeah, that kind of covers the new gear, the new bait, some of the equipment to get me started on the season, and kind of an update with kind of where I've been. We did try to do a March live stream. This piece of crap has to get replaced before we can do more. So I will look into that as well. But yeah, I think that kind of gets me caught up to everything. What I'm going to do now, for those of you, if any of you are actually interested in the company that makes the chairs, the One Tigers, I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And this goes to their site in their camping section. One of the cool things is that they have some other sections to their site, one of which is dog gear. So like some harnesses, collars, mats, beds, bowls for feeding and stuff like that. So they have some cool dog stuff on their site as well, for taking the dogs out in the outdoors. I was going to get some of the little things for my dog, but unfortunately now we're too late for that. So that's kind of one of those things where I was seeing all this stuff on the web, on the videos that I was watching, and then yeah, I didn't end up getting them. A link to the table. Let me see here, Galen. That I have to go. I got all these from Amazon. So I sent you a link to the One Tigers site so you can see their full range, but I got them on Amazon. Okay. Let me see if I can. Wow, I spelled that wrong. I have issues. Okay, so I'll get the Nice Sea official site for their camping gear. Let me see if I can find their table, because they do other products as well. Camping table. They have a bunch of camping tables. There's the one that I got. So you can, when you look at the actual site for their products, you get a better write-up on them. But look up the same items on Amazon for where you are. In Canada and in the US, it's different. Mainly if you're in Canada, you're probably going to pay a crap load more. But you can avoid import fees by going through Amazon in a lot of cases. So there's a link to the One Tigress site for their camping equipment, and a link to Nice Sea for the table that I bought. So you can get a good look at that. And then, yeah, look around and see what other stuff they have if it interests you for what you're doing. Because all this stuff that I'm getting more relates to camping, but there's no reason we can't use it in our carp fishing. And if it means that we don't have to carry a 25 or 30 pound big heavy duty chair that's really bulky and doesn't free up our hand to be able to carry rods or buckets of bait, so far all this stuff that I've been using, I can just clip onto the back of my rucksack and I don't notice it's there. It makes that much of a difference. Yeah, Galen, I was thinking the same thing. I just hadn't brought that up yet. I wanted to test some of this stuff a little bit more. But you're thinking of the same thing that I was. That's a different rabbit hole for us to go down. Because remember, we want to try and stick with some Canadian companies, and these aren't Canadian companies. But I know that they really do like to work with a lot of people. A lot of the YouTubers I watch that are using some of this stuff, those companies are going direct to those people to show those products off. So they definitely know how to get into their market. So yeah, if you guys want to check those things out, check them out. So far, I'm very pleasantly surprised with what I've got from them. If you go to the Nice Sea Amazon page, they do actually have similar folding chairs as well. They're slightly different style. They actually have a pillow on the back. I have to admit, I didn't see the chairs before I bought mine. But I don't think these hit the weight requirements that I need for their chairs. There's tons of these styles. So if you're on a budget, you're going to find one of these chairs that suits your needs. But obviously, One Tigress is one that's very respected across a lot of videos that I've watched from a lot of different people. They wouldn't all be using it if it was crap. And these guys that I've been watching, they tell you when they have crap. They definitely tell you, even if it was sent to them for free, they will say flat out, okay, they sent us this to try it. I'm never using it again, sort of thing. So yeah, check this stuff out. Like I said, go from the company's websites, looking at their products, go over to Amazon and look at Amazon, because there's a lot of cool crap on there from these companies. And quite often you're going to find the pricing would be a lot better. What I really should do is start one of those like Amazon affiliate pages where I just put all those things up that I like. And when people buy them, I get like $1. I could do that, I suppose, but that's too much work. I'm not doing that. I'll just tell you guys what I'm buying and what I like. And if you want to check it out, check it out. So yeah, there is some more things from One Tigress that I will be getting. Hopefully I can touch on that in another video in the future. But for now, we've been going almost 2 hours. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you all for jumping in and hanging out with us on this somewhat spontaneous live. I'm glad we got a live to work. I will get a new phone so I can go back to being live on the bank. I will keep you all posted on how the spring campaign's going, how the trip goes coming up in a few weeks. Yeah, exciting times coming up, which are what I really need coming out of a very, very down time. But again, like I said earlier, just got to keep moving forward. And, it's not always easy, but it's got to happen. So definitely thank you all for joining us. Glad we could see Doug in there. Glad that Clint showed up. All of you that have popped in. Grimy, good to see you again. 334 Outdoors. Paul, Galen. You guys make these live streams worth it. Always being there time after time, always the same names popping up. asking questions, telling us how you've been doing. This is why I do it. This is why I like it. Keeping the live streams going. So thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. And yeah, I have to get ready for fishing on Monday. I got to get some of this stuff prepped. But right now I have some errands to run, and I'm running out of time to do them because they have to be done within a time frame. So I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care.